Hey guys, welcome to the Restaurant Growth Accelerator podcast. I am your host, Andrew Scott, multi-location restaurant owner for over 17 years. And I also own OwnerShift, which helps restaurant owners make more profit with their businesses, grow their sales, and have more free time with their family. So today what we're diving into is how to find people that actually want to work. And with me today, I've got Dave, who is our client success director, multi-location owner as well. And so let's dive into it. Labor challenges, I would say, have always been a part of the restaurant industry because, again, I can remember back prior to even the 2008 recession, and there was hiring challenges then. And I mean, yourself from before that. I mean, hiring good people has always been challenging. And I think that's what people forget these days, is that hiring people is always a challenge. The difference is that you used to be able to put up a sign in the door that said, now hiring, and you would have people come in and give you the resumes. Whereas today, that's not how it works. Today, there is not the flood of people that we used to get because, say, back then, 20 years ago, just having a job was good enough, right? I need to work, therefore I need to get a job. And you literally walked down the street, handed out resumes, and you worked places. And that's what you did to find people. But today, post-COVID, the world has changed in the sense that it is now, there's more of a choice for where employees want to work. There are always businesses that are hiring, right? And in 2021 and 2022, there was a point where there's a labor shortage, if you will, in the economy, right? Because the economy was growing. There was a lot of extra money in the economy. Things were getting busier, but fewer people were working, or if they were working less. And some people, because of COVID, were staying home or sick or whatever the case is, right? So that all has an effect on the labor market, right? Because if you think back, the initial stuff that came out was that, if you could have potentially had COVID, you're supposed to stay home for 14 days, right? Just imagine, through the run of a year, every single employee in the entire country taking an extra 2 weeks off, right? That alone is enough to make the labor market a lot tighter, right? Just that alone, not to mention all of the other things. So restaurant owners have had a really tough time in finding people, but not only just people, but finding the right people. But at the same token, all of our clients don't seem to have that problem. So we're going to dive into why that is and what you guys can do to fix it. So one of the biggest things that I see as a challenge is that people, when they put out their job ads and advertise for their positions, they're putting out job ads that often tell people why they shouldn't work there. Think of it this way. A job ad that says, must be friendly, must smile, must be on time, must be able to lift 50 pounds or whatever. I literally saw one of our clients when they started working with, this is literally their job ad. They were like, happy people only. So let me ask you this. If you are a happy person and you see a job ad that says happy people only, one would think, oh, I'm going to want to go there, right? Because that sounds happy. But the reality is someone looking at that goes, happy people only. Oh, they must not have that many happy people there, which is why they're putting it there. They must have had some unhappy people there. So it's going to immediately put you off, right? Because you are then applying friction to the whole application process, right? By telling people all the things. And so if you are a top performer, you are going to go to the job that tells you why you should work there, not one that tells you all the reasons that people shouldn't work there, right? Because you're just telling them all the stuff that you have in your business that you're trying to get rid of, right? So what you want to do is actually have a job ad that speaks to them. Talk about why your restaurant is better than the next one. And here's the thing. It is not me that gets to decide what the market pays, like what a good wage is. It is actually the job market itself. And when I say job market, I actually mean your competition. Because think about it this way. If you are paying below every other restaurant in your area, are you going to get better candidates or worse candidates? You're going to get worse candidates, right? Because if you're paying less, they're going to...
Like you said, you start paying more.
So if we're paying less...
If we're paying less, absolutely we're going to get... But here's the best part. It's not that we're going to get worse candidates, it's we're getting the leftovers That's how I always look at it.
Yeah.
Right. Because if we're paying, because that means if your competition is paying more, then that's where everybody's going to apply first. Then they're taking the best, the cream of the crop that's coming in to apply, and all the leftovers then say, okay, well, I didn't get that job. I guess I'll have to apply with this one that's paying $1 less.
Yep.
And now you're getting their leftovers.
Now, there's some leftovers I like. My grandmother's shepherd's pie is one of them. Leftover candidates for my positions in the restaurant is not one of them. So I think that it's really, really important to understand that and it's not even, the minimum wage that's dictated by the government, but rather what the market is paying in your area. And that doesn't mean it's good or bad. It just is. Right? We might think it's high, we might think it's low, but I can guarantee you there are other places that are paying higher or paying more. I see it all the time. And the problem is that we need to make sure our business model can sustain that, because I can guarantee you that your business model will not sustain subpar employees for very long, right? Because subpar employees actually cost you more in the long run, but we will talk about that in a little bit.
More.
One thing that I want to make sure we're doing when we are posting our job ads, you should be doing some competitive research around what other people are paying and what their job ads look like, because you want to be able to beat them, because guess what? Hiring is marketing at this stage,
100%.
right? So you know how when you're doing, say, a mail out, or you're putting up social media ads, or you're doing whatever to try and get new customers, you don't put the crappiest picture you have, you put the best picture you have. You don't send out the menu item that nobody wants, right? You send out your best because you want people to experience the best and come back, right? So that's what we do. But somehow when we're doing our job ads, it doesn't appear like that. We're like, oh, well, people should want to work. And then when nobody picks up on our job ad that pays less than the market and tells them all the reasons why they shouldn't work there, we say, oh, well, nobody wants to work anymore. Well, the truth is nobody wants to work for you. And that's what we need to change.
Because your ad sucks.
Yeah. That's what we need to change.
And it's funny. A lot of times I read ads and it's like we're barking marching orders or barking orders through the job ad of like, if you don't do this, we don't want you. And if you don't do this, we don't want you. And if you don't do this, you suck. And it's like, this is how you're speaking to the job candidates, that you're trying to attract people to your business that want to work for you. And you're barking orders of what you're demanding from them if they come to work for you.
Absolutely.
That's just not the way to go about it.
Yeah. So we got to put ourselves in the picture of a top performer, and where is a top performer going to choose to go? And are we aligning those things in our positions to get those top performers? So the next piece I will say as well, that in addition to the job ad, like, most people that I talk to, they're like, oh, but our restaurant, like, it's amazing. We actually provide all these benefits, and we're like a family, and everything is great, and we really care about our employees, and I do this for my employees, and I do that for my employees. And I go, okay, so where is that in your job ad? And they're like, oh,
right.
It's not. So how are people going to know it? Because all they have is the job title. That's number one. And so your title needs to speak enough to them. You basically have to have a title that's good enough to sell the click on the job ad itself. And then the job ad needs to entice them enough to then apply for the job. And then here's the next step. Your communications with them have to entice them to come to the job interview, right? Now, there's an issue with no-shows. My favorite thing to hear is that, well, it's clearly because everyone's trying to stay on unemployment. And I'm like, there could be a percentage of the population where that's a thing, right? But you can't build your business off that. And if that's your belief, you're never going to try and go about looking at your job and changing it to get better outcomes, right? So here's the thing. The restaurants that implement the hiring systems that we teach and the stuff we're going to talk to you about today actually have better show-up rates, right? So why is that? If the truth was that everyone was just no-showing because they had to fill out their unemployment paperwork or whatever, then that wouldn't be true. There would be no way to get a higher show rate, right? But there is. And so one of the things that I want everyone to understand is typically when people don't show for a job, they've already gotten a job somewhere else. That's typically one of the biggest reasons why, because if you've already got a job, why would you go to another interview, right? So that's the reason why. And so sometimes when we're hiring, we also have to understand that the speed in which we get to the interview is also very crucial, right? Because in a competitive market, they are not just talking to one person. It's like Tinder, for example. Most people are not talking to just one other person and then done. They're talking to many people and many jobs, right? And sometimes it's the person who can get there fastest, right? The early bird gets the worm, as it were. Now, that is not to say that we want to make hiring decisions that quickly, but we need to get them and contact them and get them in for the interview as quickly as possible. Because then in the interview, not only are we deciding if they are a good fit for you, we are also then selling them on the job opportunity. Now, when I did this for my businesses, when we changed our processes, what happened was we had people that would then hold off on other job offers because they were waiting to hear back from me. And I heard this time and time again because we did such a good job in the interview telling people why they should want to work for us. And we had people that were sad when they didn't get the job. Now, this might sound like a bunch of crap to people who have never experienced this before, but it is a reality when you do it right. Okay? So it is possible, is what I'm saying. And Dave and I have both had firsthand experience with this, as well as, hundreds of our clients. So the first thing with the job ad, like we mentioned, we have to make sure people want to come in for that. And we have to phrase it in a way like a marketing piece almost as to why they should want to work for us. And so we're attracting the highest performers. Because if we only track low performers, here's the reality, is that low performers come in and they will work with you for a little while. They will not perform very well, they will make a lot of mistakes, and then they will quit or get fired, which means that training piece, because again, it costs money to hire them, costs money to train them, right? Because not only you're paying them while they're training, you're paying someone else to train them, right? That's really expensive. And if you just keep doing that month after month after month after month, what happens to your labor costs? Hey, real quick, if you're a multi-unit restaurant owner or you're looking to become one, I've identified the 3 deadliest mistakes that are killing most restaurants right now. And more importantly, I'll show you how to avoid these exact mistakes. Just grab my free copy of the Multi-Unit Restaurant Playbook by going and clicking on the link in the description below. Inside, you'll discover my proven system for building a restaurant empire that runs on autopilot and the mistakes you must avoid if you want to stay profitable and scalable. So get the free playbook and transform your business today.
The biggest piece with low performers as well is your training is never ending. It's twice as long or 3 times as long or 4 times as long as a high performer. And so you're constantly using your resources for that, even when they've been there for 3-4 months and they should be doing the basics very well at that point, and they're not. That means that if it's not you, it's your training team, it's your supervisors, it's your shift leads that are having to babysit them at a higher level, which is taking away all of your resources. And it's just dollars and dollars and dollars of effort and time that are being wasted.
And the other thing, it also stresses out your top performers because they have to pick up the slack.
Big time.
Right?
Exactly.
And if we keep them around, that then frustrates them and just lowers the productivity of the whole team. But the thing is, it costs us about $1,000 to $1,500 to train one individual. And if they then quit after 3 months, we've lost that entire investment, right? We start to pay for that investment once someone gets to, 6, 9, 12 months. That's where we kind of break even on an employee. But if your employees are typically leaving after 3 or 4 months, you're just adding to your labor cost again and again because there's a problem in your process. So that's the difference between high performers and low performers, right? So now, once we have gotten them in for an interview, and again, I mean, we ideally want to have them in for an interview within 24 to 48 hours at the longest between their application and interview. That means we need to be reaching out to them right away. That means we need to be having a quick phone conversation. We just need to kind of find a little bit more information about them if their stuff matches with what we're looking for, but get them in for an interview. Now, once we do get them in for an interview, I just remember the interview that I used to do, and I've heard this so many times. And Dave, I want to hear what your interview style was when you first started. But my interview style when I first started is I just told them what I expected from them. They came in and I'm like, all right, here's the deal. You got to show up on time. You got to do this. And, we're high customer service. So this is what I want to see from everyone. And I just told them all the things I wanted to see from them. And I was just flabbergasted when they didn't do it because I was like, I told them what I expect. I told them what they needed to do. How come nobody is doing it? And it just grind my gears for years. Why can't anyone do? Because I'm telling them right from the interview, and then sure enough, they don't call when they're sick or whatever, and they just no-show. I'm like, I told them about that in the interview. Why aren't they doing it? What's wrong with people? Was literally my thought. And so the issue was, is that I was telling them what I wanted instead of finding the people in the interview who would naturally do what I wanted. Right? Because I don't care who could do the right things. I am looking for people who will do the right things. And there is a difference between those two. So, Dave, what was your interview style difference?
Mine was the opposite, because you and I are very different personality types.
That's true.
And so for me, it was all about getting hooked on a feeling. Yes, that's a song title quote. Because I would go, exactly. So I would go in, I would maybe spend 10, 15 minutes in an interview. So not enough time to really get any real information. I had no prepared questions. I had some canned, goofy, gimmicky little questions.
How many basketballs can fit in this room, or,
right. Something goofy or whatever. But it was a vibe. I was looking for a vibe, because that's my personality. You were like, right in, this is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to do. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, so I just want to tell you what it's like here. And it's a lot of fun. And we do this and that. And then I'd ask them questions to try to pull some stuff out of them. And if I got a good feeling about them as a person or whatever, then I'd be hooked on that feeling and I would hire them. But here's the truth. It's more than a feeling. Yeah. Like that one? Getting into Boston now? Yeah. So it is always more than a feeling. You got to have the data, you got to have the questions, and you got to compare apples to apples. And I never did that. I just would hire based on a vibe, and it was just as miserable of a failure. Yeah, because I didn't spend enough time with them and get any real information.
I mean, why can't we hire based on a feeling? Why can't we hire based on a gut reaction? Well, let me tell you why. Because your feelings and emotions change day to day, right? They change based on what's happened right before the interview or after the interview. Someone, says somebody the wrong way. Somebody quits right before an interview. You're going to feel a lot different. And so if you're basing those choices on how you feel or a vibe you get, right? A vibe doesn't, some people are great interviewers. Some people are great at talking. I can talk for hours without a subject. So there's people that can do that. And it's fine, but those aren't necessarily people that, you want to have working for you. So, and there needs to be more than that. And here's the other thing. Most of us want to have a business that we can actually, build a life on and actually have time away from the business. So if you're listening to this podcast, that's probably you. You want to eventually have more locations someday. You want to be able to build your business. And so the thing is, if you based on your gut feeling, if you hire based on that, how is someone else ever going to know what your gut feeling is, right? It's not replicatable. So you get a manager, well, guess what? How long is it going to be before they are able to use their gut feelings appropriately? Because maybe you've been doing this for 10 years and you still get it wrong half the time, right? How long is it going to take them to get it right? And how are they going to know what your gut feelings are? And are you willing to wait 10 years of the same struggles before they get better at it? And what if their gut feelings are just plain wrong? Right? When we have no system or data, we also can't train and replicate anything. That's like, talking to an employee and saying, hey, so I want you to close up tonight. And they're like, okay, how do I close up? And then you're like, yeah, it's all in my head. And then you walk out the door. Like, how are they ever going to be successful? Oh, yeah, you should know. You should know what to do. No, they don't know. That's the problem. So anyway. So when we're hiring,
or at the very least, we don't know what they know, and we don't know what they don't know.
Yes,
until we get them in there and properly train.
And sometimes we don't know what we don't know. That is the human problem: is we don't know what we don't know until we learn it, right? And that's how learning happens.
Yeah.
So
well, and on that note, just before you jump to the next thing, is over the years, I improved my interviewing greatly, but not anywhere near to the point. Since I've been involved with OwnerShift and actually learning the data details and the step details of what to properly do. And if I was to go back now with the tools that I have now, it would be another huge leveling up of where I was. So over the years, I spent more and more time. So it wasn't 5-10 minute interviews anymore. It was minimum 20, actually it was more often than not, it was 30-minute interviews on the first interview, unless I identified immediately that there's no way I'm hiring this person, then I would let them go real quick. But my prospects would be minimum of 30 minutes. And even that just made a huge difference, because at least you're spending enough time with the person, asking enough questions, pulling enough out of them to get much more data. And then from there, I actually started writing down my interview questions. And so I became more templated. And sure enough, it meant I was making better decisions from the beginning and having less turnover early. And my retention just got better and better. And then once I came over to work with you at OwnerShift, then all of a sudden I saw the actual tools of all that stuff that I figured out organically over the years and got it to like 50%.
Yeah.
Then I found these tools and I'm like, oh, that's what 100% looks like. If I would have done all that, it would have been a complete game changer.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And so let's talk about interviewing for a little bit. So the way that we have structured all of our interview questions is the whole long story. I'll give you the long story and the short story. So the long story is that we go into a company's values and we basically decide what their core values are. And then we base our hiring questions off of the core values because we're trying to find that. And so like one value, might be I'll always have your back. Right. And so that's a value that both Dave and I are very familiar with. And so that's one that always meant a lot to me. And so when we're hiring, then we're asking questions about how they would have people's back and where they demonstrated that. So the questions that we ask are past behavior questions. And this is the short version, is that past behavior questions is we're trying to find situations where they actually did that. We never want to ask, what would you do in a situation? Because people can be full of shit. Or another version of that is that they might actually think they would react that way, and then they don't.
But they don't.
Because they don't know. They're asking someone to create a hypothesis that is untested. What we are trying to do is we are trying to make sure that people actually do the shit we want them to do and have a pattern of doing the shit that we want them to do. Because if they have a pattern of doing the shit that we want them to do, they are more likely to do it with us. I think I explained that succinctly. So here's an example of that. One of my favorite ones is talking about, like, in a customer service position for a server, hey, give me an example of your most memorable customer experience with a regular customer. And so you've got one dude that shows up. He's like, well, there was a time when this customer didn't get their order right. So I upsized their fries for them and told them to have a nice day. And me sitting there, I'm like, wow, that blew my socks. No, just kidding. It did not. I was like, that. Yeah, that's your job, bro. Like, that's what you should be doing. That's like the bare minimum of what you should be doing. And so then you get someone else that comes in and says, oh, well, you know what? This lady Tammy comes in on Friday nights, and she always comes in with her 2 kids after their soccer practice, and they come in. And they always get, this, and, the kids both get a kids meal, but I always add a little extra cheese because, one of the kids really likes cheese, and we had this conversation. And actually, come to think of it, they actually just won their citywide tournament the other day. All of this information is there. And then she's like, oh, but that's actually not my favorite one. My favorite one is this. And so, all of a sudden, this person has these 5 examples of regular customers where she knows their orders and their names and what's going on in their lives. So you can damn well bet that is a pattern that she is going to repeat in your business, right? So that's the difference, is because both of them gave examples, but one of them has way more depth and knocks it out of the park in comparison to the other, right? And so which one do you want to hire? The dude that goes have a good day and gives you a little bit more fries, or the one that actually knows people by name and knows their whole life story and keeps them coming back? That is what we want to do. Now, same thing where, if we're talking about kitchen efficiency, give me an example of times where you helped improve efficiency of the kitchen in your last place of employment. So that's another one. And then he says, well, I did this and I actually noticed that this time was taking too long. So, I suggested we make this change, and we did that, and that cut down our ticket times by, 2 minutes. And then and so they'll have examples of the things that they did, or give me an example of a time when you went above and beyond to complete a task, and they give you 10, right? Those are the examples that we want to use. And so that's what we're looking for.
One of the coolest part of this, Andrew, though, is that when you're asking those questions, those are these are on an interview guide. These are on a template, and you're asking the exact same question to every single candidate. And that sounds corporate and robotic and what people don't want to be. And it's the right thing to do no matter what, 100%, because now you're comparing apples to apples to apples to apples.
You can base the responses
applicant. Exactly. So you can, ask the same question, have 4 different people answer the same question. You have 4 completely different answers, and it's easy to rank the best to the worst and make decisions based on that. Whereas if you do my method previous and you're just asking them questions based on the vibe or based on what they tell you, and you go down this rabbit hole, and then you get your next candidate, you ask the same one question, but it takes you in a completely different tangent, and you ask them a completely different set of questions. You can't compare those at all. Zero.
Yep. No, 100%.
That's one of the biggest things that I love.
Now, another thing along these lines is then we want to ask those questions in different areas. We want to have a good barometer of, what their strengths and their weaknesses are. And the question isn't if they have weaknesses. They all have weaknesses, right? But are they the weaknesses that you have the time or energy to be able to work on with them? And are the strengths that you need in your business? That's really what we're asking when we're doing these past behavior questions. And another one as well is, let's talk about reference checks for a minute. I hear people like when I ask, let's go back one step. You need to take notes in your interviews. How many people literally will go through interviews and not take any notes at all? Be like, oh man, I like them. And then okay, let's picture this for a second. Picture you have a manager going and doing the hiring without taking notes, without any set questions. You come back and you're like, okay, how'd the interview go? And they're like, oh yeah, it went pretty good. I like them. I hired them. And then you're like, okay, great. So tell me more about them. Like, I can't really remember because I had 10 different interviews today and they're all getting mixed up. Well, guess what? That happens. We're human and our brains can't keep everything straight. And by the end of the day, I'm like, who was that person? And we'll often remember the last one we did, or we'll remember the worst one or the best one, but we'll forget the middle, the ones that don't stand out. If someone's dressed really weird, you'll remember them, but you're not going to remember some of the other people. So that's why we take notes. And my other, tactic here is I always rank people in A, B, or C, and as to whether they are an A player, B player, or C player. And so the A player piece of it, what I do is we rank them on every section, right? So maybe customer service is one of the things that we're ranking them on. Maybe efficiency is another one. Whatever the case is, or whatever is relevant for your business. So A is an A player, which means they're going to be a top performer, and you are 100% certain that this person is going to be an A player in that category. A B would be someone who could be a good player, but you're less sure about it, right? And then a C player is someone who's not likely to be great. So my example of the fry dude, where he's like, that's going to be a C, right?
That's a C.
He's not likely to do that. But a B is well, they could do it, but they're going to require more training and more effort, right? And so you have to decide, okay, for my business, do I have the time and effort to be able to get this person where I need them to go, right? So, but we rank them right away in all of those different areas right after the interview so we can then remember it, right? Now, the key is you should ideally only hire A players or a very small number of B players, right? You should be interviewing these people.
Don't even consider the C's.
Yeah, no, not at all. And when I say a C player, that person could be an A player on a different team, but just not for you. That doesn't mean they're worth any less as a person, right? It just means they're not the right fit for you because, there could be an A player at McDonald's that is going to be not an A player at a fine dining restaurant, right? There could be vastly different things, right? So that's the thing. We just have to make sure, is this the right fit for your business? And at the end of the interview, we want to go, oh, wow, okay, we need to have this person on our team right away. That's the way you want to leave your interview feeling, right? So
I have a quick story on the notes part. I had a client who we gave the interview guide to, and they wanted to use it and everything like that. But then they couldn't figure out how to remember all the questions. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, I can't have it in front of me in the interview.
Yeah, you can.
What are you talking about? Yeah, you can. Have a clipboard, print it off, have a clipboard, put it there, have a pen, and take notes and ask the questions right from there. Yeah. And they're like, what? That doesn't sound professional. Yes, it does. Actually, that is professional because you're actually collecting the data. So just think about this. You're in charge. You're the interviewer. You're the employer. And there's no reason why you can't have a clipboard and be taking notes and writing stuff down. And in fact, that levels up the experience for the interviewee because it puts that added pressure on them. They're wondering what you're writing down, and they feel like you're, a psychiatrist taking notes on them or something. And that's okay, because now you get to see them under that level of pressure and how they're performing and how they're reacting in the interview. So there's no reason why you can't be taking notes and literally be reading the questions off the page.
Yep.
That is interviewing, and that's totally okay.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, I always do it, even to this day. Even though I know the questions I want to ask, I still go back. And even better when we're talking about notes. We're going deeper on this one than I originally intended. But honestly, note taking is such a great thing. So when I'm reviewing their answers, I boil down every section of our interviewing guide down to one question. And this is how we rank people. Now, you might have like 5 or 6 different questions in that section to try and get the information from them. But at the end of the day, and again, I'm trying to remember one of these off the top of my head. It's been a little while since I've done a frontline interview, I'll be honest. But one of the questions would be something like, will this person create an amazing experience for every one of our customers every single time? Maybe I think it was actually, will this person create an amazing experience that will wow our customers and keep them coming back again and again? I think that was the question. And so then based on that, we rate them A, B, or C, right? And so then maybe another one could be something about coachability. Will this person take feedback and strive to get better every day? A, B, or C. Right? Now, in that section, we might have had 5 or 6 different questions that we asked and talked about those things, but that cumulatively will give us the answer to that question. And by the way, guys, as you're listening to this, we're actually going to give you 2 resources at the end of this. One of which is our hiring playbook, which actually has the job ad that we use with our clients. It also has sample interview questions for frontline employees, and I'm going to go a step further. It also has actually reference questions and a whole bunch of other really helpful tips and tricks in there. And then I'm going to go a step extra, and we're actually going to give you our manager hiring guide. Now, this one, now you might not be hiring a manager,
Andrew.
Basically. So, but our manager hiring guide is actually straight from our clients. It literally has a training of me teaching it to our clients. So it's literally straight from our client archives, and it literally has the exact questions we do for management. And so literally it's all there. And so if you're wondering what we do and when I'm talking about notes and when I'm talking about all this stuff, you'll literally be able to see it. And most of you will get overwhelmed with it, and that is okay. But it just shows you the depth and the standard of which we want to operate, because the difference in between what we're doing now to doing that, there's a big gap. But I can tell you the results from doing that is 1,000,000% worth it. So
business changing and life changing.
100%. Because here's the thing. Just imagine if all the time you spend dealing with stupid text from people, or people calling out all the time, or, people quitting unexpectedly and you have to fill their shifts. Just imagine if your life didn't have that. How could you, think of the time that you'd have to grow your business if you didn't have to deal with that, right? There'd be a lot more time left. And that's what our clients experience, because all of a sudden they have this time. They can go then and build their business, and it's great. So, but we need to fix and actually have better people, because we don't build businesses. We build people that build the businesses, right? Because you're not going to serve every single customer. You're not going to make every single dish. You are not going to do all of that all of the time. And so we need to then create the people that are going to be doing those things. And how we create the people is, number one, we select them. There was a famous coach, I'm blanking on his name right now, but he's basically like, you win in the draft. That was his quote. Basically, it's like, because if you have subpar players on your team, you're never going to get to that top level. So we want to have the best people, then we need to train them right, and we have to have the systems and structures in the business to make it happen. But the people is the first part, because if you don't have that, everything else is more difficult. So hiring is extremely crucial. The next thing we're going to talk about is the references. So now everybody says, Andrew, I don't need to do references. They just lie to me anyway. They don't tell me the truth. Sometimes they can't even answer my questions. Like, I've never given a truthful reference ever in my life to someone. And I'm like, that might be true. But here's the thing. 15 minutes on a reference check could save you 15% or more on your labor cost. Yes, you guys remember the insurance commercial about that. But here's the deal, is that 15 minutes in a reference check, because it doesn't even take 15 minutes.
What I find most of the time is I can pretty much get what I need within 3. And when it's not sure, Like if you go through all of the questions, then by the end, you're pretty confident.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Here's what you do with reference checks. Because you are right. People will always give you the best version that they can of that person. So what you need to do is read between the lines. So let's give an example. I actually had this one person that I hired, and I called his reference. And his reference said, oh yeah, he was a good employee. And I said, oh well, like why did he leave? Well, there was a disagreement over something, and we ended up just not working together after that. And I said, oh, well, would you rehire this person? He's like, yeah, if we could have sorted out that disagreement, we could possibly work that person again. So in other words, something went down and the dude got fired over it, and until that was rectified, there's no way in hell this person was hiring him back. That's the real story, right? So I thought that, and I'm like, oh, okay, it sounds like there was just this tiny little disagreement. But sure enough, 2 months into the employment, something blew up, a disagreement between, me and this person just quit. And I was like, well, damn, what that person told me was true. I just didn't understand the seriousness of it. So when we're listening to reference checks, here's what we want to be hearing. We don't want to be hearing, oh yeah, they were good. Yeah, that was okay. We don't want to hear positivity. We want to hear overwhelming positivity. So when you say, hey, like, how was this person at work? Did you enjoy working with them? Oh my God, they were great to work with. Like, they were always on time. They were always this. They were always that. They always picked up the slack for other people. Like, they will go on and expand about people that really do a good job. They will keep on going, and they will give you far more than the minimum answer. So that's what we're looking for. They will go on and on and on and on about it. What happened when they left? Oh my God, I was so frustrated because they're a really hard person to replace. And like, it took us a long time to get someone else that would come in there and do that. Like, and so I was frustrated that they left. That's what we want to hear. Because think of it this way, when your C players leave your employment, you're like, well, it saves me from firing somebody, right?
Exactly.
But an A player that leaves, it frustrates you, right?
My favorite is when you're doing a reference check, or even I might have done this before when people are calling me for a reference on somebody. And then I get to the point where I'm like, yeah, so they're applying with you. Hey, well, you know what? If you don't end up hiring them, even after the glowing reference that I just gave you on them, send them back to me and tell them I'll hire them back.
Yeah.
And then inevitably they're getting that job based on my reference.
Yeah. So that's the thing that we want to start looking for in our reference check. Because most people think it's a waste of time. But again, think of how much it costs you to train someone. It's $1,000 to $1,500 on average to hire and train an employee, right? So is that not worth a little bit more of an interview from you? And is that not worth 5 to 10 minutes of a reference check? Right. And here's the thing, for our people that we hired, we always would collect 3 references. And if we could not speak to 2 of the references, we didn't hire them. Because if they did not have 2 good references, we have no business. We're not their first job. We are not the people that are like, we want glowing references from multiple positions that we can verify, because we are looking for patterns. Right. That is what we are looking for. And if we didn't get 2 reference checks, we didn't hire them. That's the way it was. So
legit.
That's the kind of thing that we set in place for our hiring so that we could hire great people. And so that is what I think everyone should do more of, because it is not that people don't want to work anymore. It is simply that you are not attracting the right people, and then you are taking the people that you do attract, and you're probably not doing as much due diligence on them as you should. And so you're hiring people that maybe shouldn't even be working for you in the first place. And then oftentimes we spend 90% of our HR time on the bottom 10% of performers. So you end up devoting too much time to them instead of your best people, and they don't perform that well, and then they quit or get fired, and then you repeat the cycle again. And some of the other things too, what even happens is that we end up in a situation where we're hiring out of desperation. Now, this is the worst thing when it comes to hiring. There's 2 other tips I'll give you. One is never hire in desperation. And number 2 is don't hire at the wrong times of the year. And I'll talk about the second one in a minute. But don't hire in desperation, because if you need to hire someone, you are going to take someone you probably wouldn't have otherwise hired. And guess what? That might solve your problem for a few weeks, but they're either going to not perform well or quit, and you're going to be back in the same boat. So which of those is worse, right? Because then you're going to be back in the same boat. You're going to make the same thing again. You might as well just take an extra few days and make the right hiring choice, and focus on that. Because here's the other thing: when we hire in desperation, we also don't have the time to train them well. So if the first thing of hiring the person that shouldn't be hired in the first place, if that wasn't the kiss of death enough, then you don't train them properly. Well, what the hell do you think's going to happen, right? They're not going to work out well.
If you're that short-staffed that you're hiring in desperation, hiring another C or D player while you're short-staffed is going to make things more difficult, not easier. Yeah. Having an extra body that is not useful doesn't mean that you're no longer short-staffed. It means you're short-staffed and you have terrible people working for you.
And you got to train this person now, which is more labor.
And you got to train them. Exactly. It actually compounds the issue. It doesn't make it better, even though it feels like it's better because you have an extra body on the schedule. It doesn't. It actually makes things worse. And you're better off to spend an extra week finding the person that you should be hiring than hiring that person that you shouldn't be hiring a week earlier.
So let's
take the time and get it done right.
Let's change the conception of this, because I think people believe that a successful hire is when they successfully hire someone and onboard them and sign out the paperwork. A successful hire is someone who lasts 3 to 6 months at least, completes their training, and is a contributing member of the team. And if you're hiring someone that you do not think will make it at least 6 months and will be a great contributor to the team, it is not a successful hire. You're actually just spending more money and adding more workload for no reason, because then you're going to have to redo it again. And another thing too is we actually added a question on our application that we would do, or we would ask this in the interview, depending on the situation. We would ask what length of employment are they looking for? Less than 6 months. I think the next one was 6 to 12 months. Maybe it might have been 6 to 18 months. The next one was 2+ years. And if they didn't answer 2+ years, we didn't hire them, because we're only looking for long-term employees, because people get better over time. And my barometer of success is if we had people that stayed for 2+ years. So, and in my business, a lot of people, we would see the 3-4 year mark. That was a normal thing, which is not common in the restaurant industry. So that is hiring desperation. My worst scenario of when I ever heard this from a client was they said, "Oh, well, we hire people. We did an interview at 4 o'clock because we had a shift that started at 4:30, and so if they showed, they got the job." So I'm like, how are you going to build your business off of this, right? So that's what people do, because we are stuck and we are trying to hire just anybody. And if you hire just anybody, you will have results that are like just anyone will give you. And that's not going to move your business forward, nor is it going to lessen the amount that you have to work inside the business as well. So last piece we'll talk about is hiring at the wrong times, because there are 2 times of the year where it is very difficult to hire, and I will tell you what those are. Now, this may vary based on where you are geographically in the world, but what I will say is that spring typically and fall typically are the times that are harder to hire in North America, and this is why. Is that in the springtime, what happens if you're in a cold weather climate? If you're in the southern part of the States, this may be the opposite for you. This could be happening, in the fall instead. Like maybe this happens in November for you, or December. So when weather gets warmer, naturally people go out more and they eat out more. And so therefore, when that happens, you need to hire more. Because again, when your sales go up, you need to then hire to accommodate for those sales, right? And when it's slow in the winter period, you're typically not, extremely overstaffed, right? You're not hiring a bunch of people in the wintertime for a slow period. No, you want to hire them in advance of the spring period. But here's the deal. Most people don't hire until the sales already start going up, because we're always in reaction mode instead of planning mode. And so what happens is we're like, oh my God, I need to hire, because now that, it's getting busier, we need to hire more people. And here's the other thing that happens. All of your competition start hiring as well, right? So not only is it you hire,
80% of the industry is reacting. And so 80% of the industry, all of a sudden at the end of May or beginning of April, or no, other way around, April or May, everybody's trying to hire at the same time, panic hire, and now it's full on competition.
Yeah. And so you are then relying on you being the best job amongst now there's 150 other places competing for the same people. And here is the kicker, is that during that springtime, college, university, people are getting out of school and they've got their exams at the end. So what happens for all the college and university kids that are working, and not just for you, but in the restaurant, because maybe you don't hire college and university kids, but in the industry of people that hire from ages like, 17 to 30, like, most of us hire from that demographic. So it is going to affect the labor market for everybody. So what happens is they get their exams and then they change their availability because they have exams, they take time off. And then a lot of people then will leave to go back home wherever they were from for the summer. So, and the other thing too, is not only is that a whole lot of 2-week notices you're getting at that time, right? Or people in competition with you for hiring get those things. So immediately they start hiring. And the other piece that happens is when people then move back, they don't start work right away. They also take a little bit of time to do that. They might take 2 or 3 weeks off before they find that job because they want to have a break from school. So there's about this month-long period where demand is up because sales are up, everybody's trying to hire, and there are less people in the job market. So what do we see every spring? Wages go up. We see people that are left getting the bottom of the barrel candidates because they're getting the leftovers of what other people from what has already been hired. And so if you are not the best job, you're not getting the best candidates at that particular time. And the same thing happens in fall because the same availability switches. Summer people go back to school, they change their availability, and all of a sudden, boom, it happens every, September, August, whatever. Only the thing is there's less of an inflation on sales at that point. Like there's less, ramp up of sales. So it's a little bit less, but it still happens. And so what I said to some of my clients back when I first started doing this inside of the franchises, what I said was, guys, like if you spend, because think of it this way, you get short staffed, you got to go hire, then you got to go train. That takes 6 to 8 weeks, right? That's 2 months. And if you do that twice a year, that's 4 months. That is a full 1/3 of the year that you're focused on survival instead of growth. What if you could be focused on growth 12 months of the year, right? And be focused on growth during your peak period, because how many people in spring, when the business is potentially there, they've had to reduce their hours or they've had to have bad service or whatever because they don't have the staff. So I've seen this way too much. And the key to that is hiring in advance of those patterns that you can predict, right? So if you know that April is your peak, well, guess what? 2 months earlier than that, you need to start hiring. But Andrew, I don't want to hire because it's slow and I don't have the hours for people. Well, once you train them, just think about how long does it take me to train someone? Okay, it's, it takes me a week to 2 weeks to hire them, right? And then it takes me another, 3 to 4 weeks to get them fully up to speed. So that's 6 weeks. Oh, okay. Well, I guess 6 weeks, it's not going to matter because it's going to cost you the same to train them, whether it's busy or whether it's slow. It's going to cost you the same amount. So you might as well do it in advance so that they're ready.
It'll actually cost you less. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll actually cost you less to train them in a bit of a slower time rather than in the middle of your peak panic time because your resources are there to train them better in the first place. And
so they'll be more successful.
By the time they get... Exactly.
They'll stick around longer. And here's the other thing too, is then if we try to hire during when everyone else is hiring, the other thing too is there is a higher no-show rate for interviews. Fewer people will take their job because they will have other jobs that are already, getting to them. And there will be an inflationary pressure on wages. So they'll have to pay more for less quality people. Whereas if we hired when fewer people were hiring, we could have the best position and we could get the best people and have them in place before the peak period and we could go in and capitalize on it. Because let's just say this, like say, for example, I asked, how often do you guys, do an upsell competition or like trying to increase your average guest check? How often do you guys try and do that during your peak period? Most clients tell me they don't because we're just so busy and we're trying to survive and we're just, we're trying to hire because we're short staffed. And I'm like, if you were able to increase your average check during your peak period, that would actually have the biggest difference on your entire year's profitability. The reason I say that is just because your customer counts might be double than your slowest period. Everyone tells me, oh, Andrew, we try and upsell most in the winter. I'm like, yeah, but your customer counts are half, right? So even if you do that, great during the time, but the time to make hay is when the sun shines. Is that, I think that's the expression, right?
I think that's right, yeah.
Something like that. Point is, when you have a lot of people coming through, it makes more sense if you can upgrade that $2. That will have the biggest proportional impact on your overall yearly P&L versus doing it a slow time. But most of us don't, right? So all of these things together will make you a better business, better able to sustain. So again, to recap what we went through, we need to make sure that we are hiring the right people. We need to make sure we are attracting the right people. We have to make sure we're doing the due diligence on the right people. And we also have to make sure that we are hiring at the right times. And if we do all of those things, you'll have better caliber people in your business, and you will be better able to succeed as a business to navigate the storms, because restaurant ownership is tricky enough as it is. You want to have the best people on your team to be able to handle that, because if you feel like you're the only one smart enough on your team and you're the one that's doing everything, well, guess what? You probably don't have the right people on your team. So with that, we will include some links for both our manager hiring playbook. This is our most in-depth one. And then we'll also put our hiring playbook in the show notes as well. So grab those, take a look. We'll be happy to have you guys, improve your hiring. And if you have more questions, let us know. We are more than happy to talk all day about hiring. So,
I have one bonus lightning practical out of the box tip that I know I've done a lot, and I'm pretty sure you've done as well. When you are in your interview and you're at the end of the interview with a prospect, somebody that you are considering or wanting to hire, give them a reference on you. So this is something that I did often. I actually had 3 previous employees of mine that were with me for a long time and understood my business, understood me, became almost friends, whatever. And I asked them to be a reference for me and working at my establishment for incoming people. So whenever I had a good prospect, I'd say, okay, so obviously we've gone through all this. I need to see if you're a great fit for us, but you also need to see if we're a great fit for you and what you need. So some of the questions are around that, but then it's like, here's some references for you to check on me on how they enjoyed working for me and in this environment and for this company. And you're more than free to go ahead and call these up. They're waiting for you. They worked. This one worked for me for 3 years. This one worked for me for 5 years, et cetera, et cetera. It blew people's minds. And so again, I'm not going to do that for people that I'm not considering hiring. But when I did that, it immediately elevated the position. So like you said, Andrew, earlier in the thing where and you even questioned to the audience, like, I don't know if you're even going to believe this, but right, we had people actually hoping they would get the job here at our fast food restaurant because they were that impressed with everything. And that is exactly what that did for people as well. And it was definitely out of the box and surprising. And I actually got people and retained people for a lot longer from that one little thing.
If that isn't like a ninja Jedi mind trick, I don't know what is, because think of it this way. Someone will then instantly, the believability of what you're saying goes up, and people will be much more inclined to want to work for you. Just not even from the fact of them actually calling the references, but the fact that you also did that, it is going to totally change their conception. Honestly, that's massive. I hadn't heard that until this moment, and I love that.
I thought you had even done that.
No,
yeah, I had one of my employees,
awesome.
Tara, who had received, I think, 3 or 4 phone calls.
Yeah,
for reference checks.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's amazing.
Pretty wild.
So if you don't do that, that is a quick tip right there, which can be massive. So guys, hopefully this helps you out in hiring. It is one of the most challenging things, but if you do it right, you start to find that the world will open up for you and your business starts to open up in a whole different way if you get the right people on your team. So again, this has been the Restaurant Growth Accelerator. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. This episode is brought to you by OwnerShift Training, where we help restaurant owners increase their profits while spending more time with their family. And if you want to know exactly what it would take to grow your profit margin to 15% and beyond while spending more time with your family, my team has a few spots open this week for a free 15-minute restaurant assessment call. Just click the book a call link in the description, and we'll show you the exact frameworks we're using to help our clients do this in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.